Amanda discovers a little bit about herself. Dirk tries the logical route, and we may have finally met the boy. Or a boy, at least. I mean, it could be the boy, just a lot older than expected. It's all about the love on this week's Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, Season 2, Episode 5, Shapes and Colors. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. So yeah, spoilers abound, especially this week. Alright, a lot of stuff to unpack, really dense episode, a lot of things happening. A lot of highs and lows, we're feeling the love, and some potential loss, which you can't be certain of yet, though it is pretty likely. Well, let's jump in first with Amanda's story. A lot of really cool things going on with Amanda. I mean, really starting off, a real transition from not knowing to knowing, and a good dive into identity, which sort of resonates through a lot of stuff with Dirk's going on and many other things throughout the episode this week. So I love Amanda's whole opening as she's wandering through the forest and talking with Vogel, and the whole idea of like, stop asking me questions, I don't know. I mean, it really, you gotta understand, it's like, Vogel, I've been here exactly as long as you have. I know Vogel looks to Amanda to lead. Vogel's not the smartest one in the bunch here. But it's a good moment to really show that level of frustration of Amanda not knowing, that complete loss of her idea of like, look, I was trying to ride the universal wave, something Bart's very familiar with, but ride the wave, take where things are going, and now it's just getting weirder and stranger. I mean, even when she finally arrives in the little witch's coven there with Wati Watnassi, her first reactions there of like, is this it? Is it going nuts? It's just has everything just been lowball and now it's just going to get crazier and crazier? It's a beautiful sense of just inner and outer frustration at that point. But it's here where things really get interesting, when Wati Watnassi asks Amanda really an important question, and that is, who are you? If you guys have watched a lot of my reviews before, you know that the ideas of identity really fascinate me. That whole philosophy of who we are and how we approach things and how we see things, I find utterly fascinating. And I think they did a nice dive in. They didn't dwell too long, but they really asking that important question. Who are you? Who am I? You know, am I Darren Jakes? Are you? No, those are just the sounds that we use to identify themselves. Well, these are the things that have happened to me, or the people that I know, or the thing that I do. That doesn't really define who you are. That defines the job that you have, that you might make money. It defines the events that have happened in your life. It defines the people that are around you, but it still does not identify who you are. And look at that, again, they don't spend a whole lot of time into it. They get to it real quickly, but that idea of I am a consciousness, that I am a being, that I am... I mean, some people look at it as sort of like the operator inside the brain, and everything else that's going on with us is we're just, you know, the hardware in the system. And they kind of dwell on this, but really that idea of like, I am the consciousness. I am the thing that sees through these eyes, that feels what these feels, and that responds to this name, that hears these voices. That's who I am, the consciousness that processes all of these. And the reason that's really important is, one, it obviously allows Amanda to access further into her capacities that Wati Watnassi is informing her, but more important is because it gives you a different perspective from which to look at things. And to me, that's why identity is such an interesting point, is how we identify ourselves, how we see that, and to flip that on the head, to give a different perspective in order for us to look at ourselves and our events and the things that happen to us and see the bigger possibilities. And that's exactly what Wati Watnassi was going with Amanda here, is step out of the definitions of what you think you are and what you think you can do and what you think is your identity, and step back and look at it from a different perspective, and maybe that new perspective will open you up to all the possibilities of what you can be. And of course, those possibilities in one of the happiest, joyous moments of the episode is when she is able to reach out and bring back the Rowdy 3. Yeah, that was so awesome. And Vogel's reaction too. I mean, it was its perfect time. The nights are coming in. The pressure's on. She's got to reach out. It's the only one that she knows. It is the extension of her family. And just reaching and reaching into herself and reaching out into the possibilities and accepting the insane, the crazy as distinctly possible, allowed to get that transportation. So I mean, it was just it was such a breakthrough as they come out and they haven't been eaten for 3 months. It was beautiful, and that was perfect. Now, of course, someone else dealing with their identity in this episode is, of course, Dirk, who has been having some issues as of late on his approach to things, and really kind of comes to a fore in this episode. And I have to say, the diner scene was a beautiful summation of the show, of the character, and that desire to make change. Whereas Amanda is trying to find out who she is, Dirk is trying to change who he is. He is seeing kind of like his place in the universe and saying, no, that's crazy, I don't want that to happen. And it's understandable. Really, as he kind of breaks everything down is to the normal course of events, that he's sort of like a leaf in the wind. If you want to make a little Alan Tudyk reference there. Just following where the universe is pushing him and changing him, and now at a point trying to say, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be something different. I don't want it to be as hard. I mean, we know that his frustration at the difficulties and the unknowingness of his world. I mean, that's hit in the past couple of episodes. But here he's having that active change. And I love the fact that it's encouraged by Todd. And I like how through this episode, and we really get to that final summation party moment, really how they bring together. But again, it's that pathway, and it's just great. I mean, when that moment in the diner scene where you have Dirk and his frustration, it's like, look, let's lay it out. I want to try logic. I want to do this like a regular detective, because normally things just get weird and then it gets all crazy and then good people start dying. And that's the point where I start saying stupid flighty bullshit. I mean, I love that self-referential there. And Todd's like, yeah, that is usually how I call it. I mean, it's a great moment of Dirk seeing where he is, knowing his identity, and working to try and change it, to become a more active player. And the best part is, of course, all of the comic instances, because it's just like any scene where somebody says, I'm not going to do that, immediately in the next scene that happens. And of course, here we're in the diner where we run into Arnold Cardenas. So as he is saying, look, I don't want to do that, we're just being a place where somebody just finally comes up, and Arnold comes up. What are you looking at? I'm the Cardenas son. It's just shit. This is exactly what I'm trying to avoid, and runs right into it. And then, of course, following the same thing when we get to the music festival. And Ferris pushing him in, and he's just like, I am around people in teens and sweatiness, and I'm uncomfortable, and there's no way I'm ever going to find the kid. And he just turns around, hi, I'm right here, I'm doing selfies with... It's like, oh, come on. This is completely ridiculous at this point. That utter frustration that is happening with Dirk through all this. I mean, it's nice, but it's one of those things where, in some ways, he is not acknowledging who he is, while Amanda is grasping at that identity and looking for a different perspective to find out who she is. Dirk, on the other hand, knows who he is and is frustrated with it and trying to actively change. Which, of course, is understandable, because this is the point in the story where things get hard and good people start dying and things get crazy. And as somebody that gets tossed around by the universe so much, you can see where somebody might want to step ahead of this and see if they can, like, proactively deal with it. As he says, I just want to go in, talk to the right person, get all the answers laid right, nice and easy, and then we can all be happy at the end. And of course, that is really never the way that it works out. And yet, of course, in the moment while we were at the music festival and having fun. Love the love spell that Susie seems to throw out right there. Also, did you guys notice the Lux du Jour t-shirt she's wearing? A ad from last season. That's awesome. There was a shot, I think in the first or second episode, where you see a poster of hers up in the house. I never mentioned anything on it. But yeah, the shirt really caught my eye. I was like, man, I love that continuity. But that's sort of the great moment in a way of accepting one's identity. Because we have Todd acknowledging everything about Dirk. And I think that that was perfect. It's that, look, I was crazy, I did a lot of bad things, and I met you, and yes, it was crazy, and I didn't always like it, but you are my friend, and you do it. And we see this, in fact. I think that was a lot of the fun conflict between Dirk and Todd in this episode, is in some ways Todd was being more Dirk than Dirk was. Todd has already pushed off away those doubts and is saying, look, I don't know how it works, but this is how it works, and we're going to find Wendemore, and all this is going to happen, and I just feel it. And while Dirk was the whole time saying, no, it's not going to happen. So we had Todd there, which is, let's just say, this is pretty much an ecstasy moment. I think that was the spell that Susie had shot out. Just, it's all about the love. So, I mean, he's acknowledging it to Dirk, and Dirk is listening to him and saying, thank you so much. I mean, in some ways you can see this gives that acceptance for who he is that he has been after all along. And then we have Farrah, who has gone from her initial moment of getting deputized. It was just such a beautiful little moment right there. And accepting that thing that she has always wanted and who she is and who she wants to identify, to here at the end being able to push off all of the judgment that she had had. She is accepting her identity. And then, of course, Tina, who was just a crazed maniac, and reacting perfectly the way that she was. So while we have all of these identity questions, it is kind of perfect. Todd's accepting who he is. Dirk is starting to accept, maybe not push away from so much of who he is. Farrah is accepting that, and that is, of course, all enjoyed with the same moment that we have Amanda bringing back the Rowdy 3. So at the end right there, well, just before the end, just an excellent moment of joy and acceptance of who people are. And of course we have the boy, or a boy, actually, Arnold Cardenas, at least the Cardenas son popping out. Whether or not this is the actual boy of the prophecy, we're not entirely sure, but it does give us some more insight into what happened back in 1967. And it's not exactly the ideas that I was at least theorizing. I know we've all tossed a few ideas back and forth. But this seemed to be something that was happening to the family. Whatever this magical crossover, whatever this event that started causing these things, seemed to be something that was happening to the family. What they said is that they started out being gifts. They thought they were good things, and then things went bad. Kind of like how Wati Watnassi was talking about a dream unintended can turn into a nightmare. Unguided, a dream can turn into a nightmare. It seems to be something that sort of was the case. And it also seems to have been coming through those dreams. So Wendemore may or may not have been actually created. They may have been a pre-existing place that started leaking over into our world, or at least some of the ways of the manifestations and the connecting. So he talks about the trusts and the Dengdemors, the farmers and the rich people, and how the mage is the evil one overseeing all of it, but that the mage always loses. The pink-haired knight, Trust, Ponto probably, comes up, defeats the mage, and then the mage gets locked inside the train, which circles around the sky forever. So that seemed to have been the plan. But it changed. Something adjusted. And Dirk starts to kind of go into that idea, something about flowers and scissors, and that certainly seems to have a big enough effect on Arnold there, who promptly steals the air gun, has a heart attack once he sees Ponto, and is shuffled off. So hopefully he's not dead, just a mild heart attack, so we should be able to get some more information there. But at least we can start to find out that all of these things seem to have been inflicted upon the family. Arnold does say that he stopped it, so he did something, was able to negotiate on some levels. And like I said, it seemed to come from dreams, whether they were dreams that they were given or their own dreams that started to be manifested. Again, bigger things that we still have yet to find out. But we are at least closing in on things, and hopefully be able to get some more information on all on how this world was actually created. And Hobbs. Hobbs. Look, again, Hobbs's demise, if he is dead, was pretty much foreshadowed throughout this entire episode. From the beginning, where he deputizes Farah. Again, super sweet moment, really fulfilling all of her fantasies, all of her hopes and dreams. But in that sense, he is replacing himself. He is passing the torch. We have, of course, Dirk talking about how things happen in this stage of the investigation, that good people start dying. We also have that that farewell with Tina, where he was going, and there's kind of a bigger hug. You know, he's just going down the road, it's not going too far, but they still have that big hug and goodbye of something of this. So we have a lot of foreshadowing throughout the episode that something bad is going to happen with Hobbs. And of course, the biggest one is the joy of the scene right beforehand, where we have, you know, the big ecstasy party happening there at the music festival, and we have Amanda pulling the Rowdy 3 off, and they're doing a whole like Return of the Jedi partying with the with Wicket and the rest of the Ewoks there over in Windemore. The minute you have super high points, you're gonna have to have the low point. So we have, of course, Hobbs investigating, going to get tow the car, seeing another truck coming in, driving into the barn, and promptly disappearing. And Harold Bredsmore, you had suggested that that was about big enough for a car. I knew it was going to come back up, and you were right. It seems to be the pathway that they are driving right into Wendemore, is that giant wet circle. We do see the bunches of guns. So yes, the great weapon that was handed off to Papa Tross there, not the only one. Bunch of M16s being leveled in there. And of course, Mage. And Mage, having just run into the sketch, the big drawing on the window, that's also an interesting sight right there, because his reaction doesn't seem to have any knowledge or involvement in there. There was the other line at the beginning that Wati had said, is that a child unloved can go from good to bad. And I was wondering if that might have been the fact of the Mage. But the way that Arnold had described everything, this world was already created. And by Mage's reaction, certainly he wasn't expecting to come out and see a complete drawing of the adventures and so on. And he is expecting to win, which is why he sees it and goes, no, this is not the way it's supposed to happen. At least that's the way that I was reading it, is that he sees his ultimate defeat in the drawings. And in his mind, that's not going to happen. I mean, he's finding his apprentice, sent him after Dirk. That's going to be the end. So you can see where he's probably maybe a little extra upset when he wanders into the barn and finds Sheriff Hobbs right there. So, yes, we don't see anything. We didn't see anything of exactly what happened to the book club either. But that flash is a bad sign that we may have lost Hobbs, which really bummed me out. Because I love him. I love the actor. I love the character. I love his placement. I love his acceptance of everyone. Really someone who is lifting everyone up around him. But unfortunately, this may be the last that we see of Sherlock Hobbs. All right, just a couple of things. 7,776,000 seconds. How long is that? Well, there's 86,400 seconds in a day, which means that is exactly 90 days. I mean, exactly not 90 days. I mean, I like 90 days and 3 hours, exactly 90 days. So, pretty convenient asking time of how long it's been to get that number. So, yeah, exactly 90 days. Also, speaking of the Rowdy 3, I love the little gerbil water feeders that are above them. I guess if they could get that, would be my guess. I don't know, could be just aesthetic, but I thought it was amusing. This scene where they went and interviewed Susie was just, again, beautifully done. I love that Susie is faking still having her injury. I love Farah realizing that, how did you know that we were there? And Susie kind of pushing it off, throwing her son under the bus completely. and using that moment when she sees Farrah going after the book to take her attention away. I mean, it was just a really well-crafted scene where we have intelligent actions happening on all sides, and still we don't have all of the knowledge, you know, pulled out of that. So again, just a beautifully done scene showing competence on either side of the conflict there, and just marvelously done. Bart and Ponto are the best couple. Really, I love that moment. I love Ponto seeing the beauty in Bart, and Bart just accepting this. It's like, you know, last year she found a friend in Ken. Now she might actually find a little bit of love with Ponto. I don't, you know, I'm not saying anything for certain, but he certainly seems to like her, and he is pulling out the best in her, certainly accepting every part of it. It's a lovely connection, and again, surpassing one's expected identity. Got a lot of that happening with Bart here too. And she dances fine. Alright, so just, you know, an amazing episode, really. There is so much jam-packed in every scene. I mean, they take their time, they follow an interesting route, they bring you to those moments, but they take their time, you know, it's a well-crafted bit with lots of reflections back and forth, references back, we have our appropriate foreshadowing. It's just, this is an excellent example of a well-crafted show. That, yeah, it's bizarre, yeah, it's a little out there, yeah, it's a little bit of mental gymnastics to jump through all the hoops sometimes, but that's just the subject matter. How it's all put together is masterfully done, and I look so forward to every episode here, and I can't wait till next week. I want to see Todd and Dirk jumping into Wendemore. I want to see Amanda discovering more of his powers. What arms back? And Farrah getting to be a cop now. Maybe she stays there, maybe she doesn't. I don't know. And of course, we do eventually have to get Ken all rounded up, maybe to be best man at the wedding for Bart and Ponto. I don't know. Maybe that's over-expecting things, but just really, just enjoying every bit. Cannot wait to see what happens next week. So, if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. You know, you can also share it. Different social media platforms, quick and easy. If you have any thoughts, comments, you know where to put them, down in the section below. Let me know what you're thinking. Theories about the boy. Where do you think things are going? How many questions were answered for you today? And of course, how many more questions got raised? Is Arnold the boy, or is Farston the little Dengdemore kid that's over with Wati Watnassi and Amanda and everyone? Is that the boy? Or is the boy someone we haven't met yet? I don't know. Anyway, throw those down, all of your thoughts in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It's quick, it's easy to catch all of these reviews. Mr. Robot, The Walking Dead, Return of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in December. Looks so good. Don't miss any of it. You won't if you're a subscriber. Do that by clicking my face right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up our latest couple of reviews right here. Maybe an old one and a new one. We'll mix it up here. Alright, so that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.